More jobs do not fix broken numbers, they multiply them. That's where contractors get crushed. I'm Josh Savage, founder of Savage Financials. I help installation contractors turn busy weeks into clear cash flow, better job visibility, and stronger financial control. Recently, I've been working with a contractor that does residential renovation and property management work. One of the first things that stood out to me was that their jobs were actually pretty profitable. Most of the profits were showing margins over 30%. So this wasn't a story about bad pricing. It wasn't a story about losing money on jobs. The problem was that cash always felt tight. The owner's belief was pretty straightforward. The business needed to scale. More projects, more volume, more crews, more revenue. If they could just get enough projects going at the same time, eventually all the cash would start piling up. In fact, one of the conversations we had early on was around increasing their line of credit so they could create enough cash to support the growth they were planning. But growth should have been creating cash already. These projects were profitable, margins were strong. The business shouldn't have needed more debt just to support growth. So we started breaking down the projects individually. What we found was that many of the jobs stayed cash negative for almost their entire life cycle. The company would collect a deposit, then labor started, materials got ordered, subcontractors got paid, payroll kept running, overhead continued in the background, and the project would stay underwater until the final payment was received, sometimes significantly underwater. The only thing making those jobs cash positive was the final payment due at completion. If that final payment showed up on time, everything looked fine, more or less. If it showed up late, now the business had a problem. The more projects we looked at, the more obvious it became. The company wasn't really getting paid as work progressed. The company was funding the jobs. They had effectively become a bank for their customers. And every new project increased that exposure. Every new project increased the amount of cash tied up. Every new project increased the amount of risk. Every new project increased their dependence on final payments arriving exactly when they were supposed to. What made this dangerous was that the solution they believed would fix the problem was actually accelerating it. More jobs weren't fixing the issues. More jobs were multiplying the issue. The business wasn't moving toward stability. It was moving toward a larger and larger cash crunch. Eventually, all it would take was a couple delayed final payments, a customer dispute, a large change order that took longer to collect, or a few projects finishing at the same time to create a serious problem. The solution ended up being job underwriting. And I want to be clear, underwriting is different than estimating. Estimating asks whether a job can make money. Underwriting asks what that job is going to do to your cash flow while it's making money. We started attaching timelines to everything. When is the deposit collected? When does labor hit? When do materials get purchased? When do subcontractors get paid? When are progress payments collected? When is final payment collected? Then we took every active project and rolled them together into a portfolio level cash flow forecast. For the first time, they could see which projects helped cash flow and which projects strained it. They could see future cash shortages before they happened. They could see how one delayed payment could impact the entire business. The billing structure was the next thing we the billing structure was the next thing we fixed. The problem wasn't pricing. The jobs already had healthy margins. The problem was getting paid too late. So instead of simply raising prices, we changed the structure of the offer. We intentionally increased the quoted project price by about 10%. Then we offered customers a discount if they agreed to pay more upfront or agreed to a billing schedule that improved cash flow and reduced risk for the company. In many cases, the discounted price ended up being exactly what the company would have been quoted before. The customer felt like they were getting a deal because they were. The contractor got paid sooner, the project became cash positive sooner, risk went down, cash flow improved, and the company stopped acting like a bank for its customers. What looked like a growth problem turned out to be a cash flow structure problem. And if they had simply continued scaling the way they were, they wouldn't have solved the problem. They would have accelerated it. Here's the truth. More jobs do not automatically create a better business. They amplify the business you already have. If your pricing is weak, more jobs create more weak pricing. If your collections are slow, more jobs create more slow collections. If your labor is running over budget, more jobs create more labor overruns. If your cash flow is hard to predict, more jobs make cash flow even harder to predict. That's why growth can be dangerous, because growth hides problems for a while. More deposits come in, revenue goes up, everyone gets busy. It feels like things are improving. Meanwhile, the underlying issue is getting bigger. In the story I just shared, the jobs were profitable. The problem wasn't profitability. The problem was that the company was financing the jobs and waiting till the very end to get most of its cash back. Every new project increased that exposure. Every new project increased risk. Every new project increased the amount of money tied up inside the business. The owner thought scaling would solve the problem. In reality, scaling was accelerating the problem. That's something I see pretty often. An owner feels pressure. The answer seems obvious: get more jobs, get more revenue, get bigger. But before you ask whether you need more work, it's worth asking a different question. Are the jobs you already have actually creating cash? Are they creating predictable cash flow? Are they creating the kind of business you want more of? Because growth doesn't fix financial problems, growth amplifies them. And it's a lot easier to fix a problem before you scale it than after. If this hit a nerve, the next step is simple. Book a call with Savage Financials. Let's look at where your cash is getting stuck, where profit may be leaking, and what needs to be cleaned up first.